Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this interesting, hopefully interesting and fascinating discussion tonight on dyscalculia and maths anxiety. My name is Dr. Philippa Fabry. I'm a remedial therapist and I have been working with children for over 30 years. And I've always been incredibly fascinated by this kind of maths blockage. Let's call it that. It's a maths barrier that some children have. And in my role as teacher, Senko, when I was leading the remedial department at our school, and now back in private practice as a remedial therapist, this maths issue is still very much part of many of the reasons why children end up coming to work with me. And maths certainly is one of those subjects that we either love or hate. So we're going to be talking about dyscalculia. And on the 3rd of March was Dyscalculia Awareness Day. And I think that is what's given me this idea to do a webinar on dyscalculia, because it's one of the most unresearched barriers. You know, everybody talks about dyscalculia, talks about dyslexia, but not a lot of research has been done on dyscalculia. And we're going to talk about some of the common traits, that sort of patterns that I've noticed in children who come and see me with maths problems. These are the common things that seem to be prevalent in maths dyscalculia. And it's definitely, like I said, less common as dyslexia, but more common than you might think. So we know that dyslexia affects around 11, 12, 13% of the population. Well, dyscalculia is estimated to affect about 5%. So in a class of, 30 children, you might get 2 children who have dyscalculia. So that's how prevalent it is. And I think teachers generally don't always pick it up. And it's certainly in South Africa, there isn't really a proper test that we can do. We often have to put a whole lot of tests together when we assess for dyscalculia. And by putting these different sort of batteries of tests, we can then make an informed conclusion that there is a dyscalculia there. And then there are obviously concessions and things that can be applied for so that these children can be accommodated in the classroom. But I'm going to delve into just very, very quickly the components of maths and also the different stages that children go through as they are developing their numeracy, their concept of maths and number. And the little ones, we're talking about the foundation phase children and the preschool children. They are often, well, they start on the very concrete stage where they are using manipulatives and counters and fingers and real objects. And they start there. That's the concrete stage. They then move into the semi-concrete stage. So you could almost think of it like a house. I always explain it like a house. You've got the foundations, and the foundations of the house, if children are in that stage, that's the concrete stage. The walls of the house, they move into the semi-concrete stage, where now they're not necessarily needing real objects anymore to work out problems and operations and sums. They can use things like a counting chart, or they can draw a picture, or they can use a number line. So they move from the real object to a piece of paper or some other device that they can use. And then the roof of the house, we can say that's the abstract stage. So that is now where they are using mental arithmetic. They're not needing to use their fingers anymore, or even the number line or the 100 grid or the 500 grid. They can now just calculate out of their heads, and they straight away move on to using a calculator. So where is your child, do you think, in their development of numeracy? Are they still on the concrete stage, way past foundation phase, where they're still using their fingers? Or are they in the semi-concrete stage where they can comfortably use other forms of resources for working out sums? And then obviously the abstract stage where they are now learning about algebra and geometry and calculus and things like that. So those are the three phases of maths development. And then I suppose if there are teachers watching, we need to then quickly unpack the different pillars of maths or the components of maths, where there are now certain areas that are part of the numeracy curriculum at school. And the four are, firstly, the facts, so your bonds and tables. The second one is procedures, where you are doing operations and calculations using plus, minus, times, and divide. The third pillar or the third component would be concepts, so learning about time, money, measurement, and that. And then the final one, the fourth one, is problem solving or word sums. So those are the four sort of pillars or components that comprise the subject maths or numeracy. So now when we talk about dyscalculia, and I said to you, there are some definite ways that you can almost see patterns of how these children struggle. And if I just mention the three most common things, even as parents, you watching, possibly you could ask your children about these three things or watch how they are solving problems or doing their maths homework. These are three clues that might indicate that they may have quite a barrier when it comes to working with numbers. So the three things would be past grade 3, so if they are older than 8 or 9 and they are still using their fingers or counters to solve mathematical problems. So in other words, they are in the intermediate phase or even in high school and they still need to count on their fingers, or they still need to be kind of using, concrete resources to solve problems. And this becomes an issue when the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. And you're trying to solve a problem which is, in the hundreds, and they are wanting to use their fingers. So that's one big clue that there may be an underlying dyscalculia there. If they are older than foundation phase, but yet they're still using concrete aids to solve problems. That's the first clue. The second clue would be, yes, they might be able to count well up to 20 forwards, but can they count backwards? So is their brain able to reverse numbers? So again, skip counting, can they count in twos forwards to a number? And then are they able to reverse that and go backwards? If they struggle to do that, again, in their heads, I'm not talking about using a counting chart or a number line or a ruler, but in their heads, are they able to visualize that quantity in their brain and be able to count forwards and backwards in certain patterns? That's the third clue. That's the second clue. And then the third clue is, if you had to show them, let's say you take a box of Smarties, you empty the box of Smarties into a jar so they can see it easily, and you ask them, how many do you think are in the jar? Give them a chance to guess. They mustn't count the Smarties, but can they give logical guesses with how many Smarties they think are there? So can they kind of look at the quantity and give an estimate, well, it's more than 10, or it's less than 100, but more than 20, and kind of be able to sum up quickly a quantity, a realistic and logical amount that they think is in that jar. So if children struggle to guesstimate logically, that often is another clue that they may have some kind of maths challenge or a dyscalculia. And the three things again are they still relying on fingers or concrete objects to solve maths problems past foundation phase, so going into the intermediate phase and senior phase and high school? Are they still not able to skip count forwards and backwards in 2s or 3s or 4s or 5s, whatever that the skip counting sequence is? And then the last thing is, are they able to guesstimate logically an amount that they are looking at but not counting? Can they guesstimate a more or less close to the actual answer guess? Are they able to do that? So when we do have a suspicion that a child has got quite a severe learning challenge when it comes to maths, now we think of dyscalculia almost as the reverse or the sister or the brother of dyslexia. So dyslexia means the child has a severe barrier when it comes to reading, writing, and spelling. And the dyscalculia, on the other hand, is quite a severe challenge when it comes to understanding numbers, numeracy, quantity, relationships, patterns, problem solving, and that kind of thing. So it's severe, and it needs to be across the board of all those areas that we spoke about earlier. So it must be affecting bonds and tables, maths concepts, the measurements, the money, time. It also must affect how they understand plus, minus, times, and divide operations. And it affects their ability to read a problem, do a story sum, read a story sum, and understand, okay, I need to plus here, or I need to divide, or I need to halve. So they really battle to understand what the problem is asking. When the assessment happens and they come to my office now and I'm going to do a maths assessment, I also want to see 4 various things. I look at their behavior, right? I look at how anxious they are. I look at whether they're squirming in their seat, whether they're restless, whether they look uncomfortable. There's a certain amount of discomfort when I'm asking them to do sums or maths. So it's often quite difficult if there is maths anxiety to help them to relax before I start assessing, because they're already anxious coming into an office knowing that they're going to be assessed or tested, and it's anyway going to be a difficult situation. And on top of that, they're doing maths, which they struggle with. So it's very, very important when I start off with a child that I put them at ease. We play a game, we establish a relationship, we chat about school, we chat about things that's going well. We establish some kind of a baseline that I'm not here to test, I'm here to help. And we want to see where the barriers are. We don't put labels on things, but it's what are your struggles so that I, as your academic coach, can help you work through those barriers and hopefully overcome them eventually. That is what we want to do, is find out what the barriers are and then give them the strategies and the coping skills and the accommodations in school so that they can move forward. That's basically exactly what remedial therapy is all about. So looking at their behavior when they come and see me, looking at how they speak about maths, speaking about their teacher, what they like, what they don't like, what they do in school, when it's maths time, how they approach the subject. Do they seem confident or not? Do they seem stressed when they have to do something and there's a time limit? These are all sort of behavior clues that I look at. I then also want to establish, okay, what sort of level do I think they're on? Are they on the concrete, semi-concrete, or are they on the abstract level? What do they use when they're trying to solve a problem? Are they using their fingers? Are they using a counting grid? Are they drawing the picture? Are they able to select an operation, plus, minus, times, divide? And then do they know how to calculate? Do they have a method for solving this problem? And then I often also like to give them a grid like this. Okay, you can see their numbers missing. Let's put it like that. And I want to see how they go about filling in the missing numbers. Now, a child with, let's say he's on a very concrete level, very foundation level, they will probably need to start right from the beginning. 1. They will need to start from 1 and fill in as they go along, because that is where the start is 1. A child who is more semi-concrete or abstract would be able to start anywhere here. Then maybe they will start here. Maybe they'll start there. Maybe they'll be able to start down here. Maybe they'll be able to go right to the end and know that that is 100. So having some kind of a worksheet like this also gives me a nice understanding of, do they know where numbers are in a 100 grid? Do they know if I had to say to the child, 45, can you find 45 for me on this grid? Okay, where's 45? Where's 3? Where's 100? I want to see how they find those numbers. Do they need to go back to the beginning and count all the way until they get to the number that I've asked them to find? Or are they able to know, okay, where's 10? And let me work my way down from 10, counting in tens down the row or whatever. What is their strategy? I really want to see how they find out where that or those numbers are. And then also I make use of standardized tests. And a standardized test is a test that has been developed, and there are norms and scales that give me an idea. If a child is on a certain age, their maths age should align. But often with a standardized test, there's a shortfall. So where a child is 9 years, 7 months, for example, and I assess them on a standardized test, and they come out possibly 2 or 3 years below their chronological age, that for me is a clue that there's a big gap between what they should be able to do and what they are able to do. And that is depending on how big that gap is, as a remedial therapist, I would need to take them right back to where their maths age actually is. So even if they're in grade 4 or 5 chronologically, but they're coming out as a grade 2 or 3 maths learner, I'll need to take them back there and start building up where they've missed out. Because as I said right in the beginning, if you think of maths as a house, the foundations are solid, the walls need to be solid so that the roof can stay on. If there are major gaps in the foundations or in the walls of the house, that house is going to be very wobbly. So it's about making sure that we go back, we take the children back to where they were before the gaps started to occur, and we build up from there again. So in terms of going forward now, once I've done the assessment and I've seen that, yes, there is a barrier here, there's some quite severe maths delay, it's important that we then make contact with the school, and we ask the school to have some accommodations available for the child. So they need to have number charts, they need to have counters available, they need to be able to check their work with calculators. They may need extra time when it comes to tests and assessments, right? Because they take longer to process what they are reading and what they are understanding. So it's really about trying to accommodate the learning barrier, provide the tools and strategies and accommodations in class so that the playing fields are leveled out. Otherwise, it's really, really unfair. And that child will forever be struggling to catch up to the rest of the class. So I just want to leave you with some references of where you can find some more information. Dr. Steve Chin, C-H-I-N-N, Steve Chin, C-H-I-N-N, is the UK guru when it comes to dyscalculia. You can Google him and go onto his website, and there's a lot of information about dyscalculia there. And he also has a wonderful checklist that also teachers can use and parents can use to sort of get a sense of where your learner or where your child might be struggling. And that is free. You can just download that and use it. And definitely, if your child does need math support, we have some incredible tutors in Port Elizabeth and remedial therapists who do extra lessons and extra classes. And Education Services has a database of people who are offering maths classes and extra lessons in the afternoons. Please contact us so that we can put you in touch with somebody who's in your area. We don't want children to be left struggling. They don't need to. We have amazing schools and teachers and tutors here in Gqeberha, so we can certainly point you as parents in the right direction, and teachers as well. If you are needing some more support or you're wanting somebody to assess a child, you know where we are, educationservices.co.za. We are a WhatsApp away and we are an email away. It's info@educationservices.co.za. So I hope you have found this information useful. Dyscalculia is it's such a wide topic, and it is often very misunderstood, let's put it that way, and not always noticed and screened for. So the more we know about it, that's why we have Dyscalculia Awareness Day on the 3rd of March. We have these checklists that you have available to screen and check students who do seem to be struggling, and make resources available for kids. Let's not that we've got fingers and toes for a reason. We must use them, and calculators and all those things. So I see there is one comment. I'm going to just have a look and see if there are any other questions. Please ask away. We are wanting this to be informative, and if there are any specific questions and you would like me to answer a question before we go, you're more than welcome to pop it in the comments, and I can see it as it comes up. And also, please, if there's any other topics that you would like us to do a presentation on, we're more than willing and more than happy to do something. Every Wednesday, 8 o'clock is where we want to be available for teachers and parents who are needing information and support. So if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to say a very good evening, and we will see you next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So thanks so much for watching, and I'm going to play out. All the best. Bye now.